It took 7 years to make The Last of Us Part 2. It took 7 years for Neil Druckmann to take a shit and somehow convert it into a video game. Somehow crammed the data, the entire composition of his shit, into a PlayStation 4 disc and turn it into the newest PlayStation 4 exclusive. Holy shit. Holy shit was this, has this been a disaster. In the entire day one, I've seen people like freak out, damage control, write off criticism, make excuses, try to justify. No. Right now, I don't think anyone other than the most hardcore, die-hard PlayStation fanboys are really defending this shit. Like, literally everyone is pissed. Like, everyone is about where I was, like, 7 years ago when the first Last of Us first came out, and I realized that, like, wait a minute, this game isn't very good, and yet everyone is insisting it is. What's happened, I think, is that it's not just about the wokeness. I think that's only just the flavor of it, or rather, the main reason why people are suddenly very, very aware of just how piss poor the quality of The Last of Us actually is from a gameplay perspective. Because I have heard a lot of people bring this up when it comes to like the gaming reviews and stuff like that. The critics love this story. They're praising it. They're defending it. Not really defending it. I think that their narrative from the very beginning was that this was one of the best games ever made. Like, this was a perfect 10 out of 10. And immediately I saw a backlash to that. In part because of the spoilers, but in part, mostly, because the game itself is a piece of shit. I don't think that... we're at the point now where I don't think people really trust the gaming media. I don't. We're at the point now, Gamergate has essentially succeeded in the sense where people don't go to gaming websites for their media. Anyone informed, anyone who seriously follows this shit or cares about it, isn't going to care about what IGN has to say about The Last of Us Part 2. Like, everyone who seriously follows gaming media, who seriously plays a lot of games, knows that IGN is full of shit, that they are paid reviews, right? Like, paid reviews. They have to support these consoles, these big AAA brands, in order to stay relevant and keep getting those clicks. Otherwise, the companies will just support someone who will give them that praise and attention. This is a blatant example of just how poor basically every PlayStation game is. This is just an example of how, when the curtain falls, right, when people suddenly like see past the bullshit and start understanding what the situation is actually like, when they really start like asking questions, like the narrative just crumbles. Like they can't pretend this is a 10 out of 10 game when the game is this controversial. Now they're trying to like damage control this right now. The narrative I'm seeing from Neil Druckmann and Naughty Dog, like, oh, we didn't intend for this game to be for everyone. Who was it for? Like, I haven't seen a single person say that like they like the changes or like the direction or like the way it's been handled. I've just seen people like bring up this nonsense over and over and over again. Like, at this point, it feels like the only people defending it are the people who work on this game, who work on the game. And as I, a creator, will tell you, creators are terrible at judging their own work. You have complete hacks who think they put out complete masterpieces, and then you have like legitimately talented people who are never satisfied with what they do. Like, that's just the reality. You know what I mean? Like, it's weird. It's interesting to see how arrogant and condescending Neil Druckmann actually is, and how he like legit goes out and legit tries to criticize people who are going after the game, shitting on the concept of paid reviews, like the check is in the mail, guys. Like to those games, like joking about it. Like we know, okay. Like there's no bullshitting. There's no hesitation when I say this. Like these reviews are fake. They're completely out of line with what the consumers actually want, and as a result, no one can take them seriously. It's gotten to the point now where I would suggest like to not view critic reviews at all. Like literally, just make a website, make it entirely user reviews, and that will be superior to what like Metacritic currently offers, where they do this thing where they. I don't think a lot of people have talked about this yet, but The Last of Us Part 2 the reviews have been up since Tuesday, I think. They've been up all week, almost all week. They've been up for a while, right? Like, they gave this very slanted impression of the game being like a perfect 10 out of 10, perfect scores, like, from all these critics, right? For like an entire week. And then the user reviews start coming in, and people start pointing out, like, well, the story is shit, the gameplay is shit, the plot is shit, there are a lot of plot holes, they disrespected the original game, there are disgusting sex scenes. Like, there are all these examples, there are all these reasons there are all these things going against the game that the game critics never even pointed out. Even a really critical aspect that, like, no one wants to fucking play as the woman who killed Joel. They had a gag order on that. The game journalists were literally not allowed to talk about an aspect of the game that was going to be extremely controversial and just doesn't work, like, creatively. Like, Naughty Dog is, like, damage controlling this, like, oh, we wanted people to be surprised. It's really Game of Thrones Season 8 style justification. Well, I haven't seen Game of Thrones Season 8, but it's Game of Thrones style justification for poor writing. Like, people notice these things and bring them up, and, like, these creators, right, they make up excuses as to why they couldn't make a good game, essentially. Like, oh, we wanted this one to be about Abby. Like, we wanted this one. There are, like, just countless examples of things that are wrong with this game that game journalists absolutely should have brought up. Like, honestly, even that 7 out of 10, like, IGN Japan review is probably way too high. Like, I don't know. Like, how low should this game be, do you think? Like, a 3 or a 4? Like, when was the last time a game got a 1? Like, I don't think I've ever seen a game get a 1 in my life. Maybe I'll Google that. Oh, that might actually be a fun stream. Like, looking at the lowest critically reviewed games ever. That might be fun. But we've seen this constantly over the past couple of years, right? With game, like, all these great Nintendo games getting middling to mediocre scores, right? All these really, really unfairly judged Nintendo games versus these heavily overhyped PlayStation games. Like, I've been talking about this for years, and this is just another example of that. God of War 2018, the original Last of Us, like, these games did not deserve the critical praise and attention they deserve. Oh, Horizon Zero Dawn. Like, these people were seriously, a lot of these people, like Jim Sterling, will seriously try and tell you that Horizon Zero Dawn was better than Breath of the Wild, one of the best open world game ever made, that truly innovated and improved on the genre. Like, why? Because PlayStation is financially enabling them, basically. They're just PlayStation propaganda outlets, I feel like. It's interesting how, like, it's the PlayStation exclusives that have this, that have grown this narrative, right? That have this culture, that have, like, have cultivated this image of them being the absolute best first-party developers in the industry, when they're not even as good as, like, random Japanese third-party developers. You know what I mean? Like, they don't put out games at a high enough frequency. They're not interesting. They're not unique. They don't look good. They don't play well. They don't have good storylines. Like, there's nothing there, really. Like, I did an entire write-up, right, on my website, blackcatbooks.org, I did an entire write-up, right, of every single Naughty Dog game I've played, and I hate basically all of them. Like, literally all of them. Like, the only one I even remotely like is Jak and Daxter. And that was just... It's a mediocre Banjo-Kazooie clone. It's not bad, but it's not great either. I had mixed feelings about that one. And that was the one I liked the most. Like, Crash is trash. Uncharted needs to, like, stay Uncharted. It needs to, like, stay unknown. The Last of Us is one of the most overrated pieces of shit I've ever played in my life. And The Last of Us Part 2 is even worse. But the gaming journalists gave us no indication of that. Like, nothing they talked about really suggested that there was anything wrong. Like, these people were seriously pretending as if The Last of Us, Uncharted... These people seriously pretend these are some of the best games ever made because that's the agenda. That's their narrative. Like, they are deliberately trying to downplay, the plagiarism, the generic nature of these games, the fact that there are better games out there. It's so frustrating. You know what I mean? Like, the game journalism industry is a joke. Well, journalism as a whole is a joke. Believe me, I have never. Journalists are just a completely full of shit. You know what I mean? In, like, every single way. Like, how many of them defended shit like The Last Jedi? Defended shit like... I'm sure... I think I said this on stream, like, just a couple of minutes ago. I said that I think the book reviewers are probably just as bad. But because reviews aren't as prevalent in the publishing industry, I actually don't read reviews. Like, it's so easy to just go on Amazon, right? And look at user reviews, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what critics think about, Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or, like, these bestsellers. I don't care, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to read the book. It's, it needs to be like that for gaming, so to speak. Like, it needs to be critic reviews. Reviews should just be, like, word of mouth, like, playing the stuff you want to play. Like, you shouldn't have these elitist, sort of controlling assholes out there trying to defend horse shit for political reasons. That's The Last of Us Part 2. Like, the only people enabling this are people who are straight up trying to damage control PlayStation and their brand.